tatraivam sati kartaram atmanam kevalam tu yaha pashyatya kruta buddhitvat na sa pashyati durmatihi.
Thus being so, the ignorant one who sees the self alone as the doer because of an unrefined intellect does not see. So earlier, he has spoken of the 5 constituents of action, the 5 driving forces behind action. But what he hasn't said is that though Atman is the prime motivator of all action, Atman itself does not act. Atman has nothing to do with the quality of the action, and Atman is not interested in the fruit of the action. So these are the 3 things about Atman that you should remember. Atman merely enlivens the perceptions and actions of the body. Atman merely quickens the mind to feel various emotions. Atman enables the intellect to think and conceive and discriminate. But Atman is not responsible for the quality of your perceptions and actions, emotions or thought. This quality emanates from guna, excellent, vasanas, the stuff that you're made of. Your personality, the genes, not really the genes. It's interesting that the word gene came from guna. Very similar. So, take an example. All cars derive their power from petrol. So petrol, and the same petrol is in all cars. But the performance of the car is varied. One car I happened to sit in, unfortunately, this morning, doesn't go beyond 40 kilometers an hour. Another car cruises along, a Toyota or a Honda or whatever it is. And then there is the Mercedes or the BMW that when it's at the signal and the signal turns green, the Mercedes just effortlessly goes way ahead of everyone else. The same petrol drives all these cars. The performance depends on the engine. So the engine within us are the gunas, the vasanas. What he's saying here is the ignorant one, the 2 words he uses, and these 2 words are disastrous. These 2 qualities are disastrous. One is akruta buddhi, unrefined intellect, unsharpened intellect, dull intellect. An intellect that's not able to decipher where Atman ends and where actions begin. And the second killer is ignorance. Durmatihi as against sumatihi. Sumati is good mind. Durmati, bad mind. The bad mind comes because of ignorance. You see, it's in Vedanta, nobody is condemned as bad. You only consider it as ignorance. Why is a person evil? Why does a person perform selfish acts? It's sheer ignorance. Ignorance of what? The consequences of your selfishness. If anybody knew the consequences of their selfishness and their evil tendencies, nobody would do that. And unfortunately, you don't know. So this disastrous combination of ignorance and an unrefined intellect results in confusion. And what is that confusion? You see Atman as the doer. So you get entangled in the functionings of the body, mind and intellect. You get attached to their functionings. And then you become a partisan player in the game of life. The moment you become partisan, then you are subject to joy and sorrow. Even in the Wimbledon, when Roger Federer and Nadal are playing, you and I have nothing to do with either Nadal or Federer. And yet, well before the match begins, there is There are deep differences, even within the family members. Right? So invariably you find the older generation, the parents are rooting for Federer. And the youngsters, they hero worship Nadal. And so while the game is being played there, you go through the ups and downs. And so one serve he misses and he says, idiot, how does he play it? Unrefined intellect. The next time this happens, and you end up fighting with your family members or somebody who's playing in the French Open or US Open or Wimbledon, understand two things are at play. Number one, akruta buddhi, unrefined intellect. And second, durmatihi, ignorance, foolishness. So, even while the body is performing actions and perceiving the world, even while your mind is engaged in various emotions of the world, even while the intellect is going through its activities, maintain that sakshi bhav, objectivity. What is objectivity? Remember, on the first day, what did we speak of? Who is completely objective? An actor playing a role. When an actor plays a role, you find that an accomplished actor, like maybe Anthony Hopkins says, or a villain here, plays a villainous role to perfection. When you see the movie, you want to strangle the guy. Yet, the moment the acting is over, he walks out, he is a wonderful person to talk to. None of the characteristics of the role that he is playing impact on his real personality. Isn't that true? On the other hand, you might have a hero who performs sacrificial acts in the movie. The role is over, he may be a detestable character. So, the role that you play has nothing to do with your real personality. But you've got the role and the personality all mixed up. You know, like a guy in Calcutta, he was playing the role of Othello. And he got so involved. You see, the interesting thing about an actor is, if he's totally withdrawn from the role, he can't come up with a good performance. He has to get the role has to get under his skin, and he has to identify with the role temporarily while he's playing the role. Yet maintain an element of objectivity. That's what we call as dispassionate passion. Disinterested interest. Impersonal in your personal things. So, he has to get into it and yet be apart from it. And while he was balancing that, he was playing the role of Othello, and he is mad with Desdemona because he thinks Desdemona's attention has gone elsewhere. And he catches hold of her neck and is strangling her to death. While he was doing that, he gets so involved in the role, he actually strangled that poor lady. It's a true story. That's what happened. You can't afford to mix the roles up. You can't afford to mix up your personality with the roles that you're playing. The roles that you're playing may be imperfect. The roles that you're playing may be villainous sometimes. The roles that you play may be divine at other times. But your real self, the Atman, the spirit in you, is always, ever free, immaculate, perfect. If you understand this, you won't have any problems in life. Just as an actor is never tainted by the roles that he plays. But if he tilts the balance just slightly towards the role, then what will happen is what happened to that poor guy who strangled an actress unnecessarily. So the self, Atman, is merely the enlivening principle. It has nothing to do. It's like a catalyst in a chemical reaction. The catalyst has nothing to do with the reaction. Yet, without the catalyst, the chemical reaction does not take place. So when you understand this, when you develop the refinement of intellect. And that's what we're talking about. Why are we recommending the study of the scriptures? Why are we saying, please take home the Bhagavad Gita? Please take, in fact, there's a book, to start your journey, there's a book called The Profile of a Perfect Person, which has the introduction, a fairly long introduction, and a brilliant portion, the last 19 verses of chapter 2 of the Gita, which is called the Sthita Prajna portion. Incidentally, this was Gandhiji's favorite. Every single day, he recited these 19 verses to remind himself that he was born in the world only to reach that state of Sthita Prajna. So, whatever it is, you can follow whatever knowledge you have, but follow it. And you will develop this refined intellect and sumati. You will get over your ignorance and gain knowledge. 17.